Some celebrity couples just seem right, like they belong together and you can't imagine them with anybody else. As if the perfect people somehow magically found each other.
A match made in heaven, quite.
Despite fame and paparazzi and everything else that goes along with it. You know, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, Johnny Cash and June Carter. But for every Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, we get at least a dozen Janet Jacksons and Matthew McConaughey's that just make you scratch your head and say, huh?
I'm weird. I don't know. I'm whacked.
But let's face it, those types of relationships are way more fun. Welcome, I am Nostalgic Nick with Do You Remember, and today we're gonna examine 11 of the weirdest celebrity romances of the 70s and 80s. Whether it's future billionaires dating random composers, or someone dating almost their daughter.
There's no need to become Woody Allen.
These relationships had it all, for better and for worse. Be sure to hit that thumbs up icon if you enjoy our content. And if you're not subscribed to our channel, I mean, what are you even doing? But now, come on, and let's get down and dirty and weird. Madonna and Sean Penn. If I was to tell you that Madonna and actor Sean Penn briefly dated at one point, you'd probably shrug your shoulders and think, sure, the 1980s were crazy. You know, the white powder was everywhere, and Reagan was president. There were basically no rules. But Madonna and Sean Penn didn't just used to date, they were actually married for 4 tumultuous years in the late 1980s. A relationship that kinda seems like ages when compared to some others on this list. The two met on the set of the music video for Madonna's song Material Girl. And for those of you who have gotten a chance to see it, it's no wonder Penn was immediately smitten, as Madonna was then at the absolute height of her powers.
If you really like someone or idolize someone or you do anything to find out about them.
The couple was married a mere 7 months later, and the two starred in the critically panned 1986 flop Shanghai Surprise. You know, a film with the immortal line, quote, "Two missionaries and a glow-in-the-dark tie salesman do not just stroll up to people and ask if they've seen 1,000 pounds of opium." Madonna would actually dedicate her third studio album, The Blue, to Shawn, calling the actor the coolest guy in the universe. But all was not too cool and perfect for the couple. Amid legal troubles for Penn and accusations of physical violence against Madonna, she did refer to it as, quote, "completely outrageous, malicious, reckless, and false." But the couple nonetheless called it quits by 1989, although they are actually still friends to this day. Linda Blair and Rick James. I'm sure everyone who went to see The Exorcist in 1973 and watched terrifying 14-year-old Linda Blair do her thing with that crucifix, while yelling, "Let Jesus blank you," thought to themselves, yep, one day that girl will grow up and date one of the most famous funk singers of all time. But that is exactly what happened, as Blair and music and party icon Rick James shacked up together in the early 1980s. James was one of the most popular musical artists in the country, when a friend showed him a magazine article in which Blair described him as the sexiest man in the world. A phone call ensued, the two met, and the rest is history.
Everybody loved Rick James. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call.
The two would hang out, do massive amount of drugs, have a good time, and a topless photo of the two of them went viral before going viral was cool. James even wrote a hit song about Blair, and no, Super Freak is not an homage to The Exorcist. It was James's 1983 single Cold Blooded, the ode to Blair because of the way she made his blood turn to ice. I assume in a good way. But eventually, the rock star's hard partying ways grew too much for the young actress. And although the two actually remained lifelong friends, she broke off their relationship for her own health. Oprah and John Tesh.
Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it!
Okay, so while many people might not be familiar with SNL's parody lyrics, and you should probably watch it, there are some funny sketches even after the 1980s. But any fan of the NBA will instantly recognize the tune of Round Ball Rock. It was the theme of the NBA on NBC for over a decade and played on the network over 12,000 times, making composer John Tesh a household name. But did you know that Roundball Rock wasn't Tesh's only sneaky good hit? Because in the 1970s, he used to date none other than Oprah. Yep, that Oprah. Billionaire media mogul Oprah. Apparently Tesh and the most famous woman alive were up-and-coming reporters in Nashville together. When sparks flew instantly, the two even lived together for a short time. But the romance didn't last, obviously, and Tesh, supposedly feeling the societal pressure on their interracial relationship, up and left in the middle of the night, a cowardly act that Tesh now feels guilty about. Tesh also might regret some other things too, probably around 2.8 billion more things. Because let's just say that Oprah has done pretty well for herself since the two used to rock their round balls together. Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley. Now I know this next romance occurred in the early 90s, which is slightly more recent than everyone else on this list, but I don't care. I'm including it because it's absolutely bonkers. By 1993, Michael Jackson's life seemed to be spiraling out of control. MJ suffered from vitiligo, a disease that causes patches of the skin to lighten all over the body, leading to accusations of skin bleaching. He was also constantly on painkillers after being burned on the head during a horrible accident in the 1980s. And in August of that year, Jackson faced his first allegation of child sexual abuse.
I am not guilty of these allegations.
No charges were actually filed, but Michael settled out of court and the family of the young boy received $23 million. So what does the biggest pop star in the world do? Go out and marry Lisa Marie Presley, of course. And if that name rings a bell, that's because Lisa Marie is the daughter of the king himself, Elvis. After a proposal that apparently happened over the phone, how romantic, Michael.
Who said the word marriage?
I did.
Shakira. When? Where?
When
On
we're
the telephone.
Oh yeah, on the telephone.
The two were married in May of 1994 in a ceremony widely viewed as a move to distract from the allegations, as well as a way to jumpstart Presley's singing career. Because her father, well, she was not. But surprise, surprise, the two were divorced a mere 18 months later. And get this, the judge that married them actually expressed shock that it did last that long. But the gambit worked, because now we all sing Lisa Marie's songs all the time, and nobody remembers that Michael Jackson had that sordid history with the law. Okay, fine, it actually didn't work at all. Barbra Streisand and Pierre Trudeau. Everyone is entitled to a rebound after leaving a long relationship. You know, something not too serious that allows you to test the scary waters of dating after an intense emotional commitment. Some people dally with someone many years their junior to make themselves feel younger. Some people go after someone more dangerous than their previous spouse to make themselves feel more alive. And some people boink the Prime Minister of Canada. Or at least that's the ultimate power move of all time that Barbra Streisand pulled in 1970. Back then, the famous actress was just leaving a 6-year marriage to actor Elliot Gould, when she was swept off her feet when the dashing leader visited the set of her film The Owl and the Pussycat.
You think I'm pretty?
Streisand described him as very dapper, intelligent, intense, kind of a combination of Albert Einstein and Napoleon, only taller. Which I'm sure made Elliot Gould feel just great about himself. Can you imagine if your ex started dating the person running the 10th largest economy in the world? With a literal army under his command, that would be very intimidating. But eventually, the age difference, Trudeau was 50 while Barbara was just 27. That caught up to the relationship, with the actor stating that her brain was in love, but not her body. And while Streisand never became the First Lady of Canada, or the stepmom of Canada's current Prime Minister, the two did remain friendly until Trudeau's death in 2000. Woody Allen and Mia Farrow / Soon E. Previn. If your definition of weirdest romances runs more to the icky and gross, then buckle up because we might have just found your winner. In 1980, Woody Allen began to date actress Mia Farrow. and the two would collaborate on 13 movies over the next 12 years. They had one biological child together, Ronan Farrow, and Alan later adopted two of Mia's adopted children, Moses and Dylan. Alan never lived with his kids or Mia, and from the outside it looked as if they were a happy, albeit unusual, family. Then everything fell apart. In January 1992, Mia found naked photos of another of her adopted daughters, 22-year-old Soon-Yi Previn, in Alan's home.
That's just a little bit gross.
And the director admitted that they had been sleeping together for 2 weeks. The news shocked the world, and Alan released a statement saying, quote, "I've never even lived with Mia. I've never in my entire life slept at Mia's apartment. And I never even used to go over there until my children came along 7 years ago. I never had any family dinners over there. I was not a father to her adopted kids in any sense of the word." Which kinda sounds like the man doth protest a little too much after getting caught banging the daughter of his longtime partner in the most Electra thing ever. Later in 1992, Alan was accused of molestation by his 7-year-old daughter Dylan, a claim that he says was brainwashed into her by her mother to get back at him for sleeping with Soon-Yi. But that Dylan, Mia, and his son Ronan maintain to this day it's the truth. I mean, wow, what a mess. In short, at best, Woody Allen is icky, and at worst, he is a monster. Cher and Tom Cruise. Normally, when you see a celebrity couple with a massive age difference, it's an old man dating someone way too young. And the whole thing is just gross. See Alec Baldwin, Dennis Quaid, and even the lovable Dick Van Dyke. So it's kinda nice in Hollywood when the age gap goes the other way for once. As it is for our next couple, one of my favorites on this list because I never would have expected it. 23-year-old Tom Cruise met the 38-year-old Cher at Madonna and Sean Penn's wedding in 1985, but they didn't really hit it off until they were both invited to the White House to attend an event combating dyslexia. The two then engaged in a secretive, short-lived, but very steamy affair. Cher has said that Tom Cruise was one of her top 5 lovers.
Who are the other 4?
A massive compliment when you look at the people Cher has hooked up with, and that she basically lived at Tom Cruise's apartment for a bit, while the two of them spent more time in bed than out of it. But alas, the romance was not to last, even though Cher once told Oprah that, quote, "Theirs could have been a great big romance if they weren't forced to part ways." This was due to both stars having hectic schedules. And while Cher has said that she doesn't understand the Scientology aspect of Cruise's life at all, the two still remain friends to this day. Michael and Shakira Kane. This next entry on this list didn't make the cut because of how outlandish the relationship was, how different the two people were, or even how turbulent its ending. In fact, these two people have been happily married for over 50 years. Instead, it's the genesis of the relationship that is utterly bizarre and merits inclusion here. In 1971, actor Michael Caine was single and in the past had dated Nancy Sinatra, Natalie Wood, and Bianca Jagger, all massively famous.
I'm not married, I don't like guys, I go out with ladies, and that makes me a ladies man.
No.
What do you mean is I go out with a lot of them?
But one day, Michael was flipping through the TV channels and saw a Maxwell House coffee commercial featuring the stunningly beautiful Shakira Bash. Caine was immediately smitten and quickly did his best Sherlock Holmes impression, calling agents and using all his extensive industry connections to figure out that alluring model. Eventually, a friend gave him Shakira's number, and he called her every day for 10 days straight. And eventually, the British model agreed to meet Caine, and the rest is history. The couple have one daughter together and have been married for 51 years, all because Michael Caine happened to see a commercial with, as he puts it, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. I mean, wow, almost a fairy tale. Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson. At first glance, Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson's relationship doesn't seem that weird. Two Hollywood A-listers getting married when one is 31 and one is 39. An 8-year age gap isn't all that out of the ordinary for celebrities. They have one daughter, actress Dakota Johnson, and divorced 5 years later, citing irreconcilable differences. Seems pretty on par for the course for a Hollywood relationship, except for the fact that their 1989 marriage wasn't the first for Griffith and Johnson. Nope, their first marriage happened a long time before their second. An uncomfortably long time before. Griffith and Johnson first met in 1972 on the set of their film The Harrod Experiment. Don was 22 and she was just 14. Griffith's mother, Tippi Hedren, is everyone a Nepo baby? Was also in that film and recalled sheer panic that her teenage daughter was falling in love for a much older man. But Griffith called Johnson the most beautiful man she had ever seen. And a year later, the two moved in together when Melanie was just 15.
I don't think anybody really wants to hear about that right now.
I do.
Dear.
Gross and very illegal.
Right to jail, right away. No trial, no nothing.
But I suppose celebrities just have different rules than the rest of us. The two got engaged on Griffith's 18th birthday and quickly flew to Vegas to tie the knot. However, to the surprise of probably no one, the marriage only lasted 6 months, and it would be more than a decade before the couple got together again, this time legally. Patty Boyd and Eric Clapton. It's generally frowned upon to try and bang your best friend's spouse, even if you are madly in love with her. Generally, it leads at best to loss of friendship and can easily ruin many people's lives. Well, tell that to Eric Clapton, who fell in love with one of his best friend's mates, George Harrison's wife, photographer Patty Boyd, in the late 1960s. Clapton even wrote his famous 1970 song Layla about Boyd, drawing inspiration from a 7th Persian poem about a man driven mad by an unattainable love. But Boyd rebuffed his advances, and Clapton soon sank into drug addiction. He went into a 3-year self-imposed exile. When he returned from his drug-fueled sabbatical, Clapton was in love with Boyd as much as ever, and according to John Hurt, Clapton and Harrison staged a guitar duel over her in 1974 that the actor described as legendary. The air was electric. Nobody dare say a word. Well, apparently Clapton must have shredded harder that night because Boyd divorced Harrison later that year. And in 1979, she and Clapton officially tied the knot. You would expect Harrison to be pissed, but the Beatle instead began to refer to Clapton as, quote, his husband-in-law. Unfortunately, the new lovebirds did not have a happy marriage, with both abusing alcohol and Clapton becoming increasingly abusive. Boyd later reflected that Clapton's love for her might have been more a product of a competition with George Harrison than anything that had to do with her.
And we're like a tight little family, really.
Do you still love Patty?
Very much.
And the two divorced by 1989. But hey, a bizarre love triangle all around. Gene Simmons and Diana Ross. At first, Gene Simmons and Diana Ross being together does not make any sense. The queen of disco, shacking up with the painted face of a hard rocker. The fans of each artist probably hated the guts of each other and despised each other's music, with Kiss fans more likely to wear a F disco shirt than be caught dead in Studio 54. And yet, these two dated for a number of years, beginning in the late 1970s. At the time, Simmons was dating Cher. Yeah, another odd pairing. And she sent him to her good friend Ross's house to figure out what to get Cher for Christmas. Simmons and Ross immediately hit it off, and the two soon began playing racquetball together, which also is such a wild fact. Can you imagine walking into the gym and seeing those two cavorting all over the court together? Well, a romance eventually developed, and Simmons actually held off on his hard partying ways for several years to live the domestic life with Diana. Talk about a power couple. And yet, it was not to be, and eventually the two grew apart, with Simmons regularly attending ridiculous Midsummer Night's Dream parties at the Playboy Mansion, so I'm sure that didn't help. but they still remain as excellent examples that opposites do in fact attract. There you have 'em, some of the weirdest, most bizarre celebrity romances of the 1970s and 80s. So how many of these did you actually remember? Do you think any of them should have lasted longer? Which is the most inappropriate and which is the best? Finally, did we forget a massively famous couple that just seems weird? We'll get in the comments and add 'em. We could always make a round 2. If you enjoyed our video, please hit that thumbs up icon, it really helps. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new video. But most importantly, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you very much for watching.